All right, good evening. It is 7:03 p.m. on Thursday, June 8th, and I am calling the Lunenburg Finance Committee to order. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel and on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page. The following information is provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. To participate remotely from a computer, please use the link below to join the public meeting webinar. From a telephone, dial the toll-free number 888-475-4499 and enter webinar ID 841-3573-6161. Let's see. The agenda lists all topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussion, and not all items listed may in fact be discussed, as other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any announcements from the committee? No? Okay. Are there any announcements from the, let's see. Well, I guess we could skip ahead. We usually would do a public comment, but we do a public here. So is there any public comment from the committee?
No.
No. Any public comment from the public?
Yes, this is Brian Leighton.
Can you hang on one second, Brian?
Oh,
Sure.
he can go
Are you sure? Okay. All right. Go ahead, Brian.
I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm going to be the liaison from the school committee to the finance committee.
We're glad to have you. Welcome.
Thanks.
Rhonda Licio, 181 Reservoir Road. I just have some questions and comments regarding one of the agenda items. The primary school AC project. Yeah, it's my recollection that Mr. Jeffries had pointed out heat damage is occurring to the building due to it being designed to retain heat. And another thing I recalled was that we had problems with the fire alarms in that building a few years ago, and I can't recall if they were actually replaced or just repaired in some way, but I'm pretty sure we had to make some investment in that. And that was also most likely due to excessive humidity in the building. So basically, my concern and my questions are if there is heat damage occurring to building structure and systems, does this project address those issues? And if not, exactly who is protecting the taxpayers' investment? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment from the public? All right. So our town manager is home sick, so hopefully she can get some rest and recover pretty quickly. The finance director is on a vacation day today, so she's not going to be here. So we're going to move right into the first agenda topic, which is the primary school air conditioning project modification. And I sent around or put it in the shared drive the letter that came from the school department. And with us, we have Dr. Burnham, we have Mr. Cassidy, and we also just happen to have a school department member as well, or school committee member as well, plus the capital planning committee member. So we have a full house. So the idea for this, I'm not sure if anybody watched the select board meeting a couple of weeks ago where this topic came up as well. it ended in a vote to, it's a non-binding vote, I suppose. It's basically a vote of confidence is how I would describe it. Just to discuss the changes into the plan and the project as that was put forward and voted on and appropriated 2 town meetings ago. And just for us to get a chance to ask the school department and the school committee a couple of questions if we have them regarding this project, and then we can go from there. So, Dr. Burnham, Mr. Cassidy, do you want to add anything to that before we kind of jump right into questions or anything?
No, I think the letter outlines the proposed approach to accomplishing, at least to some degree, the intent of the original town meeting vote approving the AC project. When we did some more exploration following questions that were posed at that town meeting a year ago, engineers put out cost estimates, and the cost of the project was going to come in the millions of dollars, not in the hundreds of thousands. So at that point, we tried to reassess, was there a way to work within the available funding to accomplish some of that goal of air conditioning in the building. And the proposal that you have outlined, the approach is to use mini-split ductless systems to provide some air conditioning into the classrooms. There was a question, Mr. Jeffries at the select board meeting indicated that he would feel more comfortable if an electrical engineer signed off on the fact that the electrical service to the building itself would support this modified plan. And following that select board meeting, Mr. Cassidy and I, we did reach out to the electrical engineer that we had worked with last summer. And they assessed, based on the plan that you have before you, that the electrical service to the building is more than sufficient to support this plan that's before you for your thoughtful consideration this evening.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. Mr. Cassidy, do you have anything to add before we kind of dive in?
Well, I think our goal is to get consensus among the boards that are really stakeholders in this project. So it was the capital planning, finance, Board of Selectmen coming from the school committee seeking support. So once again, consensus, support, moving forward, that we're maintaining the intent of the original submission. Just another fact that I think there was concern about, that these are potentially residential units. I did meet with the vendor today. It was described to me that the units that are going in, there's not a lot of differentiation between commercial and residential in these units. He did say that the units that are being installed will not. So you've got a unit, and it goes out to 2 classrooms. That I hope I'm saying this right. That cannot be split. So it's either hot air or cold air going to both classrooms. You can't. So it's not splitting. It can't be one room with heat and one room with air conditioning. That's kind of the higher end. That is not the units that we're getting. It's strictly heat or air conditioning. So that's the big unit upgrade or change that that's not going into this project. So I hope that answers the question or any concern that the quality of the units that are going in. In addition, these types of units were put in a recent new construction project at Tewksbury Public Schools. And this vendor also is installing them in some of the older schools in the Malden Public Schools. So it is an alternative that in other districts, it's a viable option to supply additional heating and or room temperature cooling.
And removal of humidity as well.
Yes. So, so we did, between the several meetings that we've had with the groups, we've been gathering information. I hope that helps with this committee's decision.
Excellent, thank you. I'd like to open up to any questions or comments from the committee.
I had one question, well, a couple, but how these units, what are the average life? What do we know about that, using it the way we plan to use it? Are they going to last 5, 10?
The average lifespan is based upon the time that we use them, and if they're well maintained, is probably 20 to 25 years.
Okay.
So,
Do you have that as in the warranty from the vendor?
I don't know the warranty.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I don't know of anything that lasts 20 to 25 years anymore, so I'm very suspect of that.
My guess is it's not going to be warranted for that long, but I can certainly reach out. I don't have the quote in front of me to retrieve that. It's the vendor that we're using is Daikin, which is on the state contract list. They're a reputable group, international group, quite frankly. So they're not going anywhere.
And if I remember correctly, it's just the condensers that need to usually be replaced within that time frame. So it's not the whole system that has to be replaced,
No.
thankfully.
Yeah.
Do we know if we still have the current heating system in there already in the building? Is that, how are they going to interact? Is it going to, I mean, I understand that only part of the building is going to be under these items because of the limitations of the original amount granted, and you were gearing them towards the ones that need them the most. But how will the heating system currently work with the systems as they're set up?
There's no impact. We don't intend to be using these units for heating. While they will have that capability, that's not the plan. Our intention really is to utilize these units to provide the reduction of humidity in the building, as well as alleviating the temperatures inside the building in the warmer months.
Do they have the ability to actually provide humidity in reverse when you're heating?
I don't know the answer to that question. I've never heard of any situation where units have been used to humidify the space.
I'm just thinking for in the winter time, if you're using this supplemental heat, as far as I know, it's either you're pulling moisture out to cool it or you're putting moisture in to heat it. So I wonder if it would be, I don't know how
Yeah, I don't
dry
know
the
what
rooms get, but
what that impact might look like. Again, we weren't as concerned. Our priority was not around the heating. or humidification of the building during the winter season. It was more so to address the heat and the humidity in the building in the warmer months.
And in the multiple conversations I've had with the vendors, I've never, like, that topic has never occurred. So my hunch is that it's not going to provide humidity. So there's really no water source being drawn into those condensers. So I can certainly check on that, but truly, it's an excellent question that hasn't been discussed. It hasn't even been brought up. So if it hasn't been brought up or discussed, I'm guessing that it's not included.
It would be a nice park.
Going to look at, yeah.
Any other questions from the committee?
Yeah, during public comment, did you hear the question that was asked about heat damage that's occurring within the building? And if this would help that or not?
So we have addressed that previously. Mr. Jeffries did take a tour of the building prior to town meeting vote to support this particular project, and he said that he noted that there were areas that you could see signs of some heat stress. For the most part, I recall him pointing out areas around windows where it's something akin to like a rubber gasket seal that was separating. The other comment during public comment had to do with the fire alarm.
I don't think I understood that answer. You saying there is heat stress occurring or there is not heat stress occurring?
He said that he noted that there were indications that there were some heat stress in the building. It's not significant. It's not as if we have, cracked walls or ceilings or anything like that. And it is something that, we can be attentive to in terms of maintaining. But the building design itself is what he wanted to take a look at. And he could tell from the architectural design of the building that it absolutely was intended to have air conditioning. If the building was designed to have ventilation just through windows and no cooling system, we certainly would not have gabled roofs for the classrooms, likely not having an atrium that's 2 stories tall in the building. The challenge for us is that the heat gets trapped on that second floor, and it's particularly warm on the second floor during the warmer months. It's akin to going up into an attic. The heat is just trapped. It rises up from the first floor because of that 2-story atrium. And there's, not a good airflow, particularly in the part of the building on the second floor that is above where the main office is located in that building. There's not good cross ventilation. The air in that particular part of the building is the worst condition, actually.
So when I read the letter, it says the intent of this project remains the same, managing classroom air comfort. Is the purpose of this only for air comfort, or is it as stated or as asked earlier, to manage it so that we don't get heat damage?
So the primary focus for us is to make sure that we have classrooms that are a comfortable enough environment for teaching and learning. The added benefit is that by air conditioning those spaces, you are reducing some of that heat stress in the building during those warmer months.
Would
But
you,
this project was not originally pursued due to heat stress in the building. That was a secondary element that was raised.
do you think these will be run after the school year ends, during the summertime, to keep the heat down and keep the damage down? It will
Yes,
keep it.
Yep, we indicated that we would be looking to monitor and not allow the temperature inside to exceed 78 degrees. When we monitor the temperatures and they start to, reach the upper 70s, that's when we would look to be utilizing the units, even when the building is not occupied. Again, for the purpose of reducing the heat stress in the building.
As far as the second question that was brought up in public comment about the fire alarms being damaged potentially from heat and/or humidity, and whether there's been an investment or replacement, could you address that at all?
I am not aware that any of the challenges that we were experiencing with the fire alarm system a few years ago was due to uncontrolled humidity in that building. But the repairs to the system have been made. And we haven't had any issues with the system since those repairs have been made.
And if I could just give just a little detail, it was mostly the smoke detectors that were faulty. So the sprinkler systems, the suppression system was not affected. It was the alarm system associated with the smoke detectors. So, but that's been corrected.
Just sort of out of my own curiosity, I just happened to be at Turkey Hill in a meeting earlier this week, and the mini splits that are in the office area there work extremely well. Just out of curiosity, how long does it typically take for those temperatures? Because that building is somewhat similar in terms of, at least it's brick construction. I know it doesn't have the tall atriums in the second story to it that's open. But in terms of just general length of time to cool spaces right now, how well do the mini splits work at Turkey Hill?
By all accounts, they work fairly well, and to my knowledge, the time to cool the space has never been discussed as a challenge or an issue.
It doesn't have a difficult time keeping up in the hottest part of the year or anything?
No, in that building, it's the core office area that has those units. They were installed for the principal's office, the conference room, and the nurse's office, which is adjacent to the main office area there. And since they've been installed, and they are used throughout the summer, because we do have staff working through the summer months in that main office complex. So it's never been reported to be an issue.
So just to add to that, we don't work down there, but I can tell you that a few weeks ago, we were conducting interviews for the new principal in Ms. Champagne's office, and that unit was not on, I believe. For some reason, it wasn't working. But the administrative staff was interviewing the candidates in the office, the secretary realized that that unit wasn't on. She was able to turn it on at the beginning of the first interview, and within, granted it is a smaller space, but almost immediately we could feel some sort of relief to the stagnant air that was in that room. So that's my first-hand experience with it. Not in a classroom, but in a much smaller space. But it was some relief was provided essentially immediately as soon as the unit was turned on.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I would recommend that we allow Mr. Passios, who's our rep on the Capital Planning Committee, to make a comment as it relates to how this project was initially prepared and how it would rack and stack based on the, the process that's used there.
Chris, could you repeat that, because there was more to it than I expected?
I guess ultimately I'm just looking for your thoughts on this, because you are our representative into the Capital Planning Committee where these projects are typically vetted. I would expect more than this letter for a project like this. As a program manager, as a systems engineer, I would have expected more for a $500,000 project than a letter like this, but maybe that's not par for the course for how we do capital projects.
Yeah, just for the people at home, Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. I have been the Finance Committee's representative to capital planning for the past 3 years, and that term is coming to an end. I'm not sure if it's tonight or June 30th, whichever. It doesn't matter either way. Anyway, yes, Chris, this has been heard a number of times from my mouth and a number of people at the Capital Planning Committee that this project has been in the pipeline for, I'm going to say, upwards to 4 years, 3 years actively in capital planning. And, there was talk about it previous to that. There were two iterations of it over a 2-year period during the budgeting seasons. And questions started to come up as to how well vetted the project was initially with the plan to just put the original planned condensers on the roof for a number that was under $300,000, I believe, back then, and whether or not that process had been fully vetted by engineers and so on. And the second year it came back with a lower number, and there had been a key piece that the engineers had insisted needed to be done with that particular project, and that being the concern that the electrical system in the building would not handle the intended full-size condensers on the roof, and thus air conditioning, or I'd like to correct it too. This is not air conditioning, this is climate control. They're not going to be, even with the system that had been proposed, they weren't going to be able to bring it down to 40, 50 or 60 degrees in the building. It was going to control the humidity and moderate the building in the low 70s. So it was more comfort control than it was actual AC. So as you know, the school committee has gone back and gone through a number of engineering scenarios. The $7 million figure is probably the correct way to upgrade that building for the climate control that it really needs for the entire building. And I will tell you that in discussions out in the public, which I have all the time, there are some people that say that that's the route we should be going, not band-aiding it with these systems. But I think what the school committee has come up with for a plan, especially now that they did speak with their engineers and have at least a commitment that the electrical infrastructure can handle the units, I'm okay with at least this phase one. I don't think it's the best way to preserve this building for the next 25, 30 years, and maybe we don't intend to do that. We tend to go 30 years and then tear a building down, or 40 years and tear a building down. Passios is the exception to that, and it's in the condition it is now because we did not choose to spend those, $1 million here, $2 million there over the 50 years of its life. Someday I will give you a number as to what we actually spent from the day they broke ground for that building to the day with whatever we determined to do with it over the next few years. But it's small money for 50 years of use of a building. So capital planning was approached. We were actually the first committee approached in regards to this iteration of the project by the school committee. Through a straw vote, it was decided that we did not need to reconvene to discuss it because they were saying within the funding numbers for phase one, and it did accomplish the original intent of the project. I was a bit concerned that it had not been vetted by an electrical engineer, but that has been done now, so I'm more comfortable with that. I do have some concerns as to the expectation that these votes of support are not carried forward to phase two as being, everybody's already okayed it, so we just got to find the dollars from wherever to fund phase two project. I think phase one will tell us if this is going to work or not for a relatively small dollar amount considering the overall need for the building. And I think we should be cautious going forward with phase two and put it through the entire funding and capital and/or other project vetting process. If there's any other questions, or if I didn't answer the question fully.
Dave, I remember I don't remember exactly, but the building is getting close to 20 years old now. And I remember something about the replacement of the heating system at a certain point. Do you remember, was that something you said, or was there any discussion about that? Because is it going to be, at 25 years or 30 years, you're going to have to replace the whole heating system, the machines?
Again, I'm not an expert. I've had some experience in building systems and stuff, but my concern is, and I think one of the comments that I've probably made quite often is that if the building committee had gone forward with the condensers at construction, right about now, we'd be looking at replacing that entire system due to obsolescence and wear and tear and inability to get parts for the system. So I would guess that the air handling systems are going to be an issue going down the road, which are primarily now going to be the heating side of the operation there. So we're starting to Band-Aid a building that is 20 years old, and that's been our history. We do Band-Aid fixes, and then 20 to 30 years later, we have a building that is so expensive to correct all of the Band-Aid fixes that usually the best alternative is tear it down and build a new one. I don't know if there's any other questions.
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Layton, and as the school department representative on the capital planning committee, is there anything you would like to add as well, since we have you with us?
So actually, Peter Beardmore took over for capital planning for me.
For now, moving on. Well, okay, I stand corrected. The current one, but for the former, or for the past capital planning committee, you were the liaison, I believe, or you were the appointed member, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And I think I would agree with what Mr. Passio said too. It was really climate control is the big thing. It wasn't that it was a AC project. And I think that's what held it up a lot in capital planning, that people were concerned that it was air conditioning, but really it was climate control.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other questions for anybody here?
Yeah, one question, I guess, for the booth, if they're listening, is there a way of turning the speakers up in here? I can't hear the TV. I guess my question is, if we were to take a vote on that, what does that even mean? If we voted no, would you not go forward with the project? If we voted yes, you will go forward with the project? When would you go forward with the project? This summer?
So in talking with the town manager, because this is a fairly unique circumstance, her concern was that there be consensus from the major boards in town. That being the school committee as the first, and then for the capital planning committee, the finance committee, and the select board to essentially agree that this project falls within the original intent of the project that was proposed and approved at town meeting. So essentially, you're weighing in on that factor, not as much about the exact specs of the plan, so to speak, what classrooms are going to be equipped with the units, etc. That, or at least that was the way that she framed it for us, that she was looking for the boards to agree that this plan fell within the scope and the original intent of the article that was approved.
Yes, I don't think you answered my question, but, so just directly, if we were to vote no,
You're
what
the
would you
last
do?
vote. If you vote no, I'd have to consult with the town manager, but I would assume that because there's a board that has not reached consensus on this, that we would not be moving forward with the project. But I don't have any knowledge that that is exactly what will happen, because I didn't discuss scenarios of what if 2 of 3 boards are on board with this project. So I can't say for certain, but certainly if it's a no vote from this committee, then we're not moving forward on it tomorrow. There'd be a need to have another conversation with the town manager.
I suppose who has the legal authority to decide whether or not this falls within the scope of the original capital plan appropriation? That's a question I don't know the answer to. I don't know if anybody here does.
Well, we have talked about this, all about the larger issue of the capital budget, and the question came up is, well, what if we reduce the capital budget by X? Then it would be up to the town manager to disperse those funds. She is within her right, so I would assume this would be the same case, that she would have the right to marry up or down it based on the criteria that she has, which...
Yeah, I guess my opinion is that this does not fall within the 4 walls of the original project. The original project was for the entire school. It was for air conditioning, not for 2/3 of the school, for air, I forget the name that was used.
Climate
but
control.
Climate control. So now, that's a different question than, do we think that this is the right approach to take, given the fact that there was money allocated to that? And ultimately, I think that's a decision for the town, for town meeting. I would also say that I believe the lifespan of split units versus a system designed, the expectation for a system designed to do air conditioning on a building, The life expectancy, I would say, for the split units is probably lower. Seems like 10 to 15 years is the actual life expectancy on those. But again, I kind of question what it is we're being asked to do with this information.
Well, if I could just jump in, it's my opinion that obviously we're looking for the support of the board. I think the town manager realizes that it did deviate from the original intent, which was, chiller systems, but it is a climate control system. The last thing the town manager wants, I'm not going to speak for her, but I would imagine she feels the same way that the school administration and the school committee feels, which is having consensus among groups that we're doing the right thing, being transparent on the project that we're want to move forward on. We have our board, the school committee, the administration has relationships with this finance committee, with the board of selectmen and the capital planning committee. It's really laying that out and asking for support, kind of moving forward. If it's the choice of the committee not to approve our proposal, then I'm going to quote Dr. Burnham, which is, it's sort of back to the old drawing board. We have to go back to the town manager and figure out what our next steps would be. We're not going to move forward tomorrow on this project if this board doesn't support this project. So that's just my opinion, my perspective on this. But really, it's building consensus among the group that saw and approved the original project so many years ago. I'll turn it back to the chair.
Are you lined up to have this project ready to go this summer?
We could, yeah.
Do you want to? Sure, Mr. Passios.
Dave Passios again. I have all the same concerns that the previous speaker has in regards to what we're, supporting here. And, when the pushback started 2 or 3 years ago about this project, the problem was that, or in my eyes anyways, the project had not been fully vetted. It was just it was designed 20 years ago to be this way, so we're just going to do what was designed 20 years ago. And, that put up some red flags right away. The superintendent, through that process of pushback from the capital planning committee, stated to all of us and directly to me personally that they would not move forward with the project until they knew they were doing it the right way. Given that, and what I know through today on the process that's about to possibly move forward, I'm not 100% sure this is the correct way to go for that building for the long term. As I said previous in my comments, it's a Band-Aid fix, and it may be taking us down the road of previous buildings where we're taking the alternative and, when we get down the road a little further here, 10 or 20 years, then we're not going to have a viable system to work with. The other thing being is that, You know, everybody thinks that it's absolutely imperative, or some people think that it's absolutely imperative that we get AC into that building yesterday. And that's not entirely true. Number one, we've gone 20 years without it, except in particular areas. The needs of particular students that are required by law have been taken care of by managing, I believe, mini split systems or window-mounted systems. We could do that for another year and hold this money in reserve. The capital money does not go away. It does not get rescinded, as far as I know. I don't think there's even a way to rescind an appropriation for capital. And come up with a comprehensive project that does the entire original intent of the original proposal. That's the position I would take if I was sitting up there with you folks tonight, and as your representative, that's the position I'm taking right now. Thank you.
So I think, at least for me personally, it may be a Band-Aid fix. It may not be entirely within the original scope of the capital plan request, but it is still within the spirit of the request, which is to bring some relief to those classrooms. And while we have made it 20 years with this system, we have temperatures that were not the same as they were 20 years ago. We have hotter days in June. We have hotter days in September now. I have had 4 kids that have gone through there now in the last few years, and it's not really comfortable. And I think that at this point, we've already appropriated $238,000. It's vastly different from $7 million. But how long is it going to take before we'll actually get an approved plan to spend $7 million through the system? I can guarantee you it will not be done by next year. And how many more years does it take before we decide, okay, maybe now's the time we finally put that Band-Aid on, just to at least offer a little bit of support or a little bit of relief in the interim? At that time, is $238,000 going to cover 8 units and 16 cassettes, or is it going to cover half of that? I understand that we want to be fiscally responsible with these funds. They have been appropriated for this. And again, it's not going to add air conditioning. It's not going to bring the temperature to 50 degrees. But I can guarantee you that 70 degrees is far more comfortable than it is in the mid 90s with high humidity in those classrooms. It may not provide cooling to the hallway outside and the walk to the specials, but at least the classrooms that they're in, where they're spending the majority of their time, could at least be manageable while we figure out what to do with the remaining part of the project. And maybe phase 2 doesn't make sense. So maybe as we make it through phase 1, we determine, okay, this is working enough, but we need more. And we do need to put in that $7 million investment. At that point, perhaps it comes before as at that point, I suppose it would have to come through as a full warrant article, and we would have to have a debt exclusion and all of that stuff. But as we know, we have $42 million to work with over the next 30-ish years. I have a hard time saying this doesn't make sense to do in the interim, and instead we should have kindergartners, first graders, and second graders have to just sit in an oven because we're arguing about $238,000 to give them a little bit of relief while we figure out what to do in the future. That's my take on it, at least. Any other discussion, any other comments, questions?
I'm just going to make a process point in that, there's the original project, the revised version, the $7 million estimate, now this plan. And I feel like from a process standpoint, as much as I think everybody here is trying to do the right thing and bring relief to teachers and students, the process bothers me. Not that not that anybody's trying to do anything that doesn't have good intentions, but I think we have the whole capital planning process set up for this reason to have projects vetted and so forth. And to me, what was being proposed here is different enough from the original project that, you know, I don't feel comfortable saying that we should move forward with this, because I'm not sure this is the same intention that the plan was voted on at the town meeting. So I'm very hesitant to say we should move forward with this. And again, it's not questioning anybody's intentions or the right, you know, motives, et cetera, and trying to get something done that's practical, but I think stepping back, I think the process is a really important one to keep the integrity of the process.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment, and I think as a board that doesn't set policy, and if the ask is whether this, you know, I think we could make a motion to vote on whether we think this is in line with the original article. And then after that, I think it's up to the school board, the select board, and the superintendent and town manager to do the executive function of government. But, you know, ultimately, we advise town meeting. We advise the legislative branch on what to do. And I'm in agreement that I think the process, we're not following process, and I would, you know, to Mr. Passios's point, I do think we really need a real plan for this building. And I'd like to see, you know, I don't see this as a fix to the building either. This is an improvement to the building. You know, and if the plan is that in 30 years we're going to tear this down, that's a much different kind of, I don't know. I'd like to see the total plan for this, because it should be a 200-year building. It is brick. We should be maintaining it as such. So I would be inclined to vote that I do not think this is within the original intent of the article. If for nothing else, it's only 2/3 of the rooms. And then the second reason being that it's, you know, environmental cooling versus AC. You can have the debate if we want and move forward on whether we should recommend doing this project, but I think that's a different process and outside of the, this request in our charter. So.
My view is, first, the question of should it even come to us, or into the select board. I guess turning it around, saying, what if they didn't come to us? Would we be, hey, why didn't they come to us and bring this up? So I think it was a good thing to do, to the select board and to us to have this conversation. So I have no problem with that.
I agree with that.
The issue really goes back to way back when this was first proposed. And I think the issue was that there wasn't enough, as I think Dave mentioned, enough legwork done on that particular capital item. It was like, well, we think it's going to be around this. That's what somebody told us. And I think that's where the error was. That's where the error was created. The expectation of back then, this is what it would be to do the things that we wanted to do, without enough information to really to do that. And I think that was brought up at the time, and that's when we found out that it wasn't going to be $238,000, but almost $8 million. So to me, that's the process that we need to improve going forward. You can't change the past. So as any organization, you look at things that didn't go right and say, okay, let's not do that again, and fix it. So I think one of the things we need to do is to have a better handle on things like capital items. What is the capital committee might say, we need at least this. We don't want to spend $30,000 on a $200,000 project just to get the data we need, but there's got to be some level. So that would be up to the capital committee to kind of discuss. But we got to do a better job on that. Secondly is all these properties have things that need to be done to them at some point. And we seem to be surprised when the roof needs to be repaired on, or fixed or replaced on a building. In most places that have buildings, they have reserves. They say, okay, this roof will last 20 years, and we estimate the roof's going to cost $100,000 to replace in 20 years. So we're going to reserve every year 1/20th of $100,000, and we're going to keep it there and make sure that when the time comes up, we'll have that money, or some portion of it, or we'll be in a position to borrow the money at that point, or something, but have a plan so when these things are done for the major things. Now, if there was, something happened that we didn't expect, that's what we're here for. But I think that we need to do a better job of that. It seems like we do a pretty good job of vehicles and things we have money set aside, and we put aside the money. We should probably do that for buildings and building needs, and it's more complicated. It's more there's more moving parts, but I think we got to do that. So, to me, that's really the issues that I think need to be corrected. The question of whether or not we like this or not, I know that it can get very hot in that building. My kids are been out of there for a number of years. My daughter was the first kindergarten class in there, so she's been out for a while. But I remember, I can go back and seeing her come back red-faced and saying, oh, it was a hot day. So it's, and, I think we need to do something about that. And this isn't $8 million. This isn't $2 million. It's a relatively small amount of money. Not that it's insignificant, but I think it's going to, if it's been looked at and this will serve the purpose of at least providing some relief for those kids and the teachers and the administration that's there, I would support it.
So I'm just rereading the first sentence of the letter, and it's to provide information on the project, but also ask for your support, and it's, addressed to the Finance Committee Chair, ask for your support for the modified plan outlined herein. It seems to me we could take the approach of saying, do we support the modified plan, herein, and take a vote on that. But certainly there's other ways to approach it. But that's the specific ask of this letter.
Do you want to turn that into a motion?
Yeah,
I'm happy to.
I move that we vote on whether the committee supports the modified plan outlined in the letter from Lunenburg Public Schools.
So why don't we just make a motion to support it, and a nay vote would
Yeah.
mean you don't support it, and a positive vote means yes, you would. Would that be, would that make
Yes.
sense?
Sure.
Certainly.
All right, I'll second that.
All right, so by way of clarification, the letter says $238,000, but at annual town meeting, we voted for $232,800.
And I'll just speak to that, apologize for the error on that figure that's in that letter, but obviously, we would work within the budget that was allocated for this project.
Do you want to amend the motion then to accept the number that's actually in the warrant from FY '22, FY '23?
What was it, 200
$232,800.
Okay. So we have a motion to support the modified plan outlined in the letter, with an amendment of the number value being $232,800. Correct? Where a vote in the affirmative is to support the plan, and a vote in the negative is to not support the plan. Is there any discussion before we take a vote? All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Right. To make it a little more interesting, Dr. Burnham, we are split 2-2. That's a fail vote, right? Okay, so I'm not exactly sure how to take that. I suppose that would go back to, like you said, the town manager. Again, we are not executive branch related whatsoever. We are on the legislative side, so we don't have, as far as I'm concerned, the authority to deny the plan whatsoever.
Agreed. I view this as an advisory.
Right. That's why, when I preface it, that's why I said sort of a non-binding vote. We do not contain the authority to stop this or to force this to happen. So please take that into consideration when you speak with town manager, and I'm sure she'll have her opinion, and the select board will have an opinion as well on this, and the school department or school committee.
I just in final on this one, part of the additional reason for me on this is that besides the process and all that is we had a number of 232,800. It lacked any engineering discipline in any, behind it. And we have now a workaround associated with this. And I listened to this meeting and I listened to the prior meeting at the select board on it. And again, I think it was one of these, we pulled together a number. We went back, we asked an electrical engineer, but I don't see anything in front of me that represents a plan on this thing. And again, as a systems engineer, as a program manager, in my own business, I would never approve a project like this without enough details associated with it, to include operations and sustainment and maintenance and all the other things that go along with this. And I'm sensitive to the fact that the schools get hot, and I also had 4 children that went through this school as well. But I'd like to see a little bit more details in the plans that come forward to us. Starting with the what's presented to the capital planning committee. So,
If I could just offer one point of information. We did originally have an engineer come up with the original cost. What was disputed by our former facility director was the need for an upgrade to the electrical service. That is what I said that I would pursue, because by the time this went to town meeting, Mr. Launder had retired. So we worked with an engineering firm last summer, and that engineer confirmed that indeed we did have enough electrical service to that building to support the original project that we asked for. What they felt, however, was that the age of the other mechanicals that would be tied into the condensers were approaching the end of their useful life, and it was, in their estimation, more prudent to replace all of the rest of the mechanicals on the roof at the same time. They sent it out for a cost estimate, and that's what came back at $7 million. So I wouldn't want to leave the public with the thought that we didn't engage engineers in the first place. We did. It's just that our facility director, who was here at the time that the building was built, and was part of that monitoring that building project, completely disagreed with the first engineer that we did not need an upgrade to the electrical. And a second engineer confirmed that our facility director was correct. So, again, I don't want the public to feel that we didn't, work with the appropriate level of professionals when we first came forward with this project and this price tag. It was reduced based on the estimate that the first engineer gave us, reduced the amount that would have been allocated in that first engineer's cost. We reduced the cost of upgrading the electrical service, and that's where you have that figure of 232.8.
Thank you, Dr. Burnham.
But I do appreciate the consideration, your thoughtful consideration on all of this, and I appreciate the concern for the maintenance of the buildings. We're committed to maintaining the buildings the best we can with the funding that we have available. And like I said, this accomplished a portion of the total scope of the original proposed project, but lived within the allocated monies voted by the town meeting. But honestly, thank you very much for your time and your consideration. Appreciate it.
And I'd like to echo what Mr. Gray said, that thank you for coming and bringing this back forward to us for our thoughts on the matter.
Thank
Happy
you.
to do that.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.
All right, moving along to the next portion, the Master Plan Steering Committee assignment. The only reason why I have this on here now, it's my belief, at least, that it's probably not the best idea to do much in terms of organization until we have a few extra members, as we are about to become even lighter. But this one, I felt at least was important enough to get off the ground that we should at least have a representative from the Finance Committee. So I hope you've all taken the time to read over the letter from the Planning Department. And just for the public's well-being, if they're not aware of this, there is the start, and this hopefully we'll get into some of the concerns that were raised earlier. A Master Plan Steering Committee is being convened and charged by the Planning Board, and then there will be members appointed for the term of the updates process, and the committee shall consist of 15 voting members, 1 member from each of the following boards: the Planning Board, the Board of Selectmen, the Conservation Commission, the Council on Aging, Parks and Recreation Commission, the Lunenburg School Committee, the Lunenburg Trustees, the Library Trustees, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Finance Committee, as well as 6 members at large appointed by the Planning Board. The idea here, the vision of their plan, of their committee, is the master plan will develop a physical and digital document for the town of Lunenburg that optimally reflects and supports the community's priorities and goals. I think the best way that I've heard this put from Mr. Burney was it is a committee to figure out where Lunenburg wants to be when it grows up in 30 years. I think that was I appreciate that analogy, at least. So it looks, let's see, the charge that they were listing off as well, the Master Plan Steering Committee advises on the development of the Master Plan document, which is a living document that is currently in existence from 2002, but needs to be severely updated. The committee also fosters openness and inclusion in the master planning process through dialogue and communication with the consulting team of Over/Under, RKG, INS Associate, and various stakeholders in the Lunenburg Committee. The plan, the last thing I'll read is just the bulletized listing of the plan is intended to be a consensus vision of the residents of Lunenburg, and all efforts will be made to include as many voices as feasible in its development. Items identified for consideration in the master plan update include, but are not limited to, the following: identifying areas for inclusionary zoning and other affordable housing measures, examining places for public use spaces and amenities, identifying sustainable environmental measures, analyzing the impact of new residential development on the public schools and other town services, evaluating infrastructure needs for the area, strategizing economic development measures to entice businesses to town while maintaining its rural feel, and expanding economic opportunities for existing and new agricultural uses. The planning board also mentions that at this time, the meetings are likely to be once a month, I believe. However, they're expecting to put out some subcommittees as the project sort of starts working through. So with that, they're asking for at least an initial member of the Lunenburg, or of the Finance Committee to be appointed. So is there anybody that is itching to be on this committee by any chance?
So before itching to be on the committee, I will say that I believe there's 3 major appointments we need to make as part of this board. One is to the Capital Planning Committee, one is to this committee, and the third one is to the Building Committee, or whatever we call it.
Municipal Building Site.
Municipal Building Committee. I would hope that, Tom Gray would continue to want to be part of the Municipal Design Committee, and I think he's represented us well, and I think that continuity in that is pretty important. The second thing I'll say is that my wife is on this planning, and I think it would be wise for me not to be. And let the record note that Dave was laughing at that.
You guys can carpool to it, though.
Yeah, we can carpool. Yeah, that's right, I'm sure she is.
There'll be a text coming in soon.
So, with that said, I do.
There it is.
She just said smart. My recommendation would be, Evan, for you to be a representative on this.
Any other thoughts?
I had one quick question. It did list a consultant. It had a name. Is that a done deal?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They interviewed 3 companies for it and chose that. I forget the name of them, but I think they're.
Innis RKG Innis Associates. Okay. And when is it gonna start? It's 18 to 24 months. Is it gonna start like now, or is it gonna start?
I believe Mr. Bernie's email said that it was going to start in June, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so now.
I thought so, yeah.
So I just do want to make clear, because shortly after the town meeting, I wrote the chair and the vice chair to let them know that I've had some increased responsibilities at work, and I'm unable to continue on the committee, so I said that I would be resigning at the end of this month. So I think obviously I'm out for any of these types of appointments, but, and I can talk more about that later, but it's been a pleasure serving on the committee, and I really would like to get back on the committee at some point. The next couple of years are going to be pretty tough for me. But I think as the kids start leaving for college, I'll definitely consider coming back, but
Doesn't get any better.
You want to do our minutes?
What's that?
Want to do our minutes?
Yeah.
We're hiring.
Anyway, so I just want to put that context out there.
Evan, do you want to be on this? Is this something you'd be interested in?
It is, actually.
Good.
I would be very much interested in that, so.
All right, then.
Do we have to vote on this? I have no idea.
Well, I
make
think
a
we have to designate
says
somebody,
it-
so we'd have to vote on it.
Appointed by, yeah.
So I will nominate Evan as our member to the Master Plan Steering Committee group.
Thingy.
Second. Okay, second.
Any discussion? Do we want to put a time limit on there? Like, do I have to just do this until June 30th? That we can start again, or I guess we'll just redo it
The whole
every.
2 years.
Exact, yeah, maybe, we'll see. 18 months. Any other discussion? All right, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we have one. And Dave, you are correct. It is, the kickoff meeting is June 15th at 7 PM in this room.
And they're gonna go, like, all the meetings are gonna be public, just, I think I said something about, I read something about they're all, the open meeting laws are gonna apply to this, so for people out there, they'll be able to follow this along, I guess.
For people that don't have something to watch on the third Thursday of every month,
Yeah.
can watch this one now. All right.
Bouncing ball.
15 members, they won't be sitting up here.
No, no. Be around that table, I assume. All right, moving on to the next assignment. We have the Capital Planning Committee assignment. And first off, I would like to thank Mr. Passios for continuing to serve on behalf of the Finance Committee, even without being on the Finance Committee for the last number of months. So we are very appreciative of you sticking around to see that process through. At least I know I am personally. So let's see, since we have Mr. Baelish leaving, since Mr. Gray is interested in sticking with Municipal Building Design Committee, I believe we said, I would be happy to nominate Mr. Menard for the Capital Planning Committee assignment, if he's up for it.
Yeah, I would be willing to do it.
Your wife's not on that one.
She has been on that one. She's not currently on that. She's also been on FinCom, so.
There's three vacancies.
Yeah.
I second that.
Any other nomination requests? All right, all those in favor of Chris Menard being the Capital Planning Committee, Finance Committee representative, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, Mr. Menard, thank you very much.
Just a clarification, that is a 3-year appointment.
Yep.
When's your Finance Committee term end?
In like 3 weeks.
You're gonna re-up, right?
Well, I have to get
You're gonna
appointed.
Right, you're gonna go for reappointment. You're not just gonna sit on the Capital Planning Committee for 3 months, 3 years, right?
I think you'll get reappointed, don't worry.
I don't know, maybe that school committee gets a
Be
vote on
tight.
that.
That's true. I don't have it on here, but I do have at least committee liaison assignments. Do you have, Mr. Gray, do you have an end date for municipal building design?
It's been up in the air. As you might know, we presented to the select board about a month ago, maybe a little less than that. And they were they took our hybrid plan as and agreed with it, I guess, as best as they could. And I've been waiting for the next meeting to occur so we can discuss what our next phase is. And our next phase might be to drill down some more and make I think the plan might be a multi-year plan doing various things. So, one of the things I think that will help this is as we do smaller bits of work per year, that means as we go further on down the calendar, more money becomes available, money leaves, we pay off certain debt, that means we can now use more. So that might make the 42 million a little bit bigger, but I would have to go through the numbers. But I think if this is a longer-term plan, it'll make the numbers work better, too. So,
Did you say that was presented to this?
it was presented as a overall plan, the hybrid plan of basically making this building a, meeting rooms. We'll continue to do these kinds of meetings here. The Ritter would be expanded and be the school committee, school department, and the town hall. They would be tearing down a big portion of TCP and doing some work on the kitchen and the gym and so on. Still wasn't clear what we're going to do with Brook. We were totally divided. Some of us wanted to tear it down or get it removed, although we tried that. Others wanted to save it, but the problem is that it is so expensive to maintain that building, and it has very little value as anything but storage, I guess, and it's be too expensive. So that was the one that we hadn't decided on. But beyond that, I think we had made good progress on how we think it will go. We did do some number crunching, basic number crunching. We also talked about things like, well, if we do this amount of work to the building, then we got to put an elevator in the building, because of some rule. And so okay, what can we do to manage that a little better, and so on. So things like, don't tear down TCP until we do the work on the section that we're going to keep, then tear it down because it's a percentage of the total building. And so, we're trying to finagle our way around to make the rules work for us rather than us getting the rules affecting us. So, and we have a lot of smart people who know those things in the committee, or we've asked them to come along. I think, I'm not sure what the next step is, but I think the next step probably would be, let's do some more drilling down and get ready to make some presentation at some point, and have a plan with actual things, dates. And as we were talking about here, as I mentioned before, I hope we get to the point where we have some real numbers, where we do enough work so that we're, it's not going to be 100%, this is the final number, but it's going to be a good estimate based on all the available information that we can possibly have at that time. So I think we'll see what happens. Selectman Jeffries is the head of that committee, so it's kind of in his court right now to set up the next meetings and move us along.
Do you envision special town meeting having an article for, in order to come up with real numbers, you're going to probably need to hire
Right. We're going to need to get some,
Architect
we're going to have to get a budget, yeah, for sure. That was discussed at the select board meeting, and I think that's one of the things we're going to, it might be part of the, I don't know. I don't remember what we decided, but it's definitely something we need to get people who are real smart and to help us write the right plan. And I think, there's a lot of overlap for what the master plan is. And one of the things I think we need to do a better job of as an organization, as a town, is to really manage our properties. And, we tore down the old primary school. Why? Because, could it have been saved? Who knows? But we built a new one, and we just said, I'll let that, it was a secondary thought. I'm sure people at the time were talking about it, but it didn't get done. And we don't have endless supplies of money. And I know better than pretty much anybody that you leave a building abandoned for a period of time, no matter how well you keep it, it's not going to last. It's going to fall apart pretty quickly. So we need to have, if we're going to say, let's do this and this, we have to know, if we're not going to use the Brooks building, what are we going to do with it? We have to make a decision and stick with it. If we're going to do this, we're going to do that. I think the one thing that was clear, the town has told us this, is that this building, the town hall now, is something that is worth spending money on and preserving. because it is such an important thing to the town. So it's gonna, our thing is, we gotta give it a purpose. And the purpose was to have meetings and maybe to even have the PAC, to have a usage for the building. But we also think that we gotta put money into the building here, foundational stuff, not just, as Dave was saying, putting Band-Aids on it. We need to do it right, so we can get it ready for the next 100 years.
Offhand, do you know when your assignment ends for municipal building design?
I don't know. I guess until the committee ends, or I'm not, which, I don't know.
I think usually once we start July and new members come on and old members leave, we start to do those liaison assignments, so.
But this is not a liaison assignment, this is a committee assignment, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't remember. We'd have to maybe go back to the minutes and see what it said when I was
I
voting.
don't think we gave a date.
I don't think we did either.
That was a committee's assignment added to the list of assignments by the select board. They gave up one of their seats and added a finance committee member.
Okay,
So that is a committee seat assignment.
okay. So you're there until, in perpetuity.
Till we have a plan.
Exactly.
Gotta get a plan together.
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, we certainly do not need to, unless you did not want to continue.
No, I do.
Excellent.
Do we have, so we'll be 3 people short, right?
We will have a quorum if all 4 of us will be here starting in July.
I don't know if other people didn't put in talent bank forms
I haven't heard anything. I'm supposed
or
to,
volunteer forms or whatever they are.
talent bank forms.
I think they changed the
Oh,
name.
they did?
Yeah.
The
Oh,
yellow one now?
you don't have to be talented anymore, it's just
No, they
volunteer.
said we can't find any talent.
That's why we're here.
Well, it is, I will be honest, it is, this is a job that I think, can be scary for some people to take on because, it's finance, it's numbers, it's, things like that, and it's about the town, and I'll tell you, my 2 years, I've got an education from Evan and Chris and Peter and Tom and Dave and everybody on what makes this town work, and there's a lot of things that have come together. So it does take a while to get fully involved, but I would ask anybody out there who's watching or who will watch later, this is a worthwhile thing to do. So if you have the time and the energy to do this, please fill out that form, because we can't run on 3 people.
Absolutely. So I put committee liaison assignments on here, not in an attempt to reorganize it, but more just to kind of fill in, with Caesar leaving, he was our school committee liaison, which is a pretty big one, and with Tom leaving, I believe we're losing fire and police, and I forget the other one as well. But I at least just wanted to make sure we had it. I'm happy to do it as a temporary fix, a holdover until we hopefully get a few more members on the committee. But we do need to at least have an interim liaison assignment for the school committee for sure.
I can, if you don't mind, I can do that. I've been watching them online or looking it up afterwards.
That would be great. Chris, would you like to do
At least for
that?
the short term.
Yeah, I'm happy to do, and that my plan on here for reorganization for entirely is once we actually have somewhat more of a full committee. Do you have any preferences for?
Police and fire, I think I could do police and fire.
Okay. You get to have coffee with them. Did you ever have coffee with them?
Honestly, no.
Yeah, I had it once.
I'm in the back of their cars all the time.
Bad boys, bad boys.
You can't give me a ticket, I'm a liaison.
I'm Michelle, ooh,
Tom, were there any other liaisons that you had?
Library.
Library? Any preferences? I'm happy to do library. Send an email to Muir. Unless anybody else wants it for now. We could give it to Jay since he's not
Yeah,
here.
Jay's on.
Okay, excellent. I just wanted to do, moving on to the summer schedule, I just wanted to kind of get a rundown for, this isn't to actually go through these items, this was just what I've currently got on here for my notes that I've taken over past meetings for what we wanted to discuss over the summer months. The special town funds was, I believe, Chris, you had mentioned that, I believe it was you, that we have tons of different funds with all different sorts of amounts of money.
yeah, just to get a refresh and update, and maybe even explain that to folks that haven't had that explained to them before.
And start maybe looking into whether or not we can do anything with that, if we can, actually, that gets in the next one, investment options for better returns. If we're able to roll that into anything else, if there are new accounts that are allowed to be created, something that we could potentially put in for a special town meeting or something.
Yeah.
To consolidate those. Fiscal policy, that's just sort of I think that's a long-standing one that gets discussed in the summertime as far as my recollection goes. And it's pretty broad, obviously, but my idea there was just to kind of review just the general fiscal policy of the town itself, where we're spending our funds, how we're spending our funds, where we would think, whether we would like to, as a committee, put forward a strategy or at least a recommended policy that we would want to present. I'm happy to, before we get to the next few, I guess we have other on there as well. Is there anything else that people wanted to discuss over the summer months while we have time for it?
I wouldn't put too much on our agenda being 4 members, because with any kind of vacation, if one of us isn't here, then the others have planned for something that won't happen.
Yep. Okay.
I guess we should, I know the last couple of times you've asked people to respond, whether we probably need to make sure that we are communicating with you on whether we're available or not.
I'm going to start putting them, I did it once for a meeting that we ended up having to cancel, but I'm going to start throwing them actually on the calendar
Okay.
with an invite list that I would ask, either just a yay or nay, just so I can, if we're not going to have a quorum, like I know August 10th, I'm going to be away. So that one is automatically canceled unless we have well, I guess we have a month and a half for someone to fill out a form, 2 months at this point. But yes, if you know that you're not going to be, and I actually have the list of dates on here, so I'd like to go through those real quick before and that's sort of the meeting frequency portion of this.
Okay.
I have us listed down as having a meeting on the 22nd of June, the 13th and 27th of July, the 10th and 24th of August, and the 14th and 28th of September. Like I said, I will be away on the 10th of August. Are there any dates?
I will not be available on the 22nd of June.
22nd of June? Okay, so that one may already be canceled. Actually, not necessarily, because Tom, you're still here for that meeting as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and that other meeting that I have every other they don't have it during the summer, so I will be on time.
I can just come in late and then we could just start the
Yeah.
next day. Mr. Bayless, you said you were going to be able to make that one, correct? As the
I
last.
should be able to make that meeting.
Okay, if you could just let me know if you're not able to, and I'll reach out to
Okay.
Mr. Simeoni as well. in July when we're down to theoretically 4. Are there any issues with the 13th or 27th of July? Mr. Gray or Mr. Menard?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
At right now.
You haven't planned your whole summer out yet? See, my calendar's already all filled out. Got red, got blue, got green.
Now that my kids have all left, we can go away whenever we want. And
Oh.
It's a lot cheaper when it's not the summer.
Okay. August 10th is going to be a maybe, depending upon if we have a volunteer form filled out and someone on the committee before then, unless one of you guys is also not going to be here for that night. And the last one that we really don't need to get into September, but August 24th will be the last one, which,
Yeah, I'll be there.
And that's not Memorial Day weekend. So.
it is not, correct. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have potentially 5, likely 4 meetings that we could have over the summer. So it's not terrible. My plan then is that I'm going to put each of these items on the agenda as just an old business item. And if we're able to have the meeting and get to it, fantastic. If we're not, then we'll cancel it as needed, sort of a day or two before, like I did last week or 2 weeks ago. As far as the committee reorganization, again, I think it's the same idea. We're down to 4 members. It doesn't really make sense to reorganize the committee as of right now, but I'm happy to do a reorganization once we have a member or 2 more. At least to go through the process, so we're making sure that we're having everybody's opinions heard and whatnot. And again, just since we are so short-staffed at this point, just please let me know if something comes up as soon as you can. Whether it be by text or email, doesn't matter to me. Just let me know so I can pass it forward to Heidi and to Joe and town manager and all that. All right. Without the town manager here, I'm not sure that there's much to discuss in the old business for tax assessments and abatements, although I have heard that they've been making some progress. And last I'd heard, it sounds like that there's actually going to be a decent amount of abatements being granted, but that could be until it actually happens. I'm hopeful that it will, but until it happens, I'm not sure. The last I'd heard, they made it through somewhere around 150 assessments, I think, reassessments. So they're making progress. I don't know if they've actually had the abatement meetings yet, though, since those are all in executive session.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I heard it this past select board that they were intending to wrap up either next week or the week after.
Oh, so they made even more progress. That's excellent.
I think that's what they had said, so.
Good.
Seems like, I looking at the calendar, they're meeting like Wednesday, Thursday or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but a couple of days. And I think that's what they kind of said, 4 hours for 2 days, and they hope to get that done, so. Hopefully get this beyond us, figure out what it's gonna be, and then hopefully, I guess the big thing is that for next year, we don't have this problem, and we can then get the revenue that we will expect, rather than a little bit less than that.
Again, just for anybody listening that is still unsure that this is not a windfall for the town.
Yeah.
Because I'm still seeing people at least putting it out there that this is somehow a large amount of money going to the town, and it's some conspiracy, but it is not. We are limited by Prop 2.5.
And this was an issue of disbursement of where that money was coming from.
All right, moving on to minutes. We have 4 sets of minutes in the drive now. I have not had a chance to look over the April 6th minutes, but I did look over we had 2 from 2022 that were missed. I don't know if people have had a chance to look over October 27th and November 10th minutes.
Yeah, I had looked at everything that was in there, and I thought they were all good.
I did as well.
Yeah, I did too.
Okay.
And I would, yeah, No, go ahead, sorry.
Did everybody have a chance? I have not looked, like I said, not looked at April 4th, April 6th.
That just came today, right?
Yesterday, maybe? Yesterday or today? Tom, have you had a chance?
I haven't
to
seen
okay.
that one.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Okay. I'd happily entertain a motion then for the October 27th, 2022, November 10th, 2022, and March 30th, 2023 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we are unanimous. I will get those moved over.
Did town manager say whether or not we had someone that was,
She's put it out there, but she hasn't, last I heard, she has not heard anything yet. So, we will need to, we're gonna need to possibly have a new clerk set up for next meeting, at least for the interim. She is working on the March 7th. Amanda's working on the March 7th, 2023, and the April 20th, 23 minutes as well. So she'll put those over, and then I believe that's it for her, at least for catching up. Moving on to committee reports. Are there any reports to put forward from any committees? Excellent. Any topics for future meetings aside from the summer schedule meeting ones?
No.
Perfect. Let's wrap up with any public comment from the public. Mr. Passios.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for being willing to let me finish out the capital planning process through this last budget season. It was very important to me, and I hope I represented this committee in a way that it was appropriate. I know there's been some concerns, and it's kind of difficult sometimes when you're trying to be a taxpayer and an individual in a town and represent a board of 4, 5, 6 people also at the same time. As I think the chair made the comment when it was decided that I would carry on through the end of my 3-year term, I'm always looking to, at the best interests of the town, has always been in the back of my mind. I'm a lifelong resident here, and the decision that I've made over the past, or the movement over the past 18 months to back away from municipal government has been very, very difficult for me personally. And don't discount me on seeing me back sometime sooner, later hopefully than sooner, but you know, the pull is very strong. Second subject, you all expressed something that's kind of been touched on for a number of years now as we've gone through the building reuse scenarios and the building design and you name it, whatever we've done. And that is that, and I think you all agree tonight, that we've done overall all of the facets of town government here in Lunenburg have done a really good job of getting a handle on equipment that we need and groundskeeping, employee management is, I believe, better than it's been in a long time. But we're still very, very much lacking in our infrastructure, and we need to get that under control. We can't keep saying we can't afford it. The school committee presented a proposal or a scenario or review of the needs for the Turkey Hill Elementary School in a previous meeting a week or two ago. And what I felt was the tenor of that conversation was that the building needs a lot of work, and it's very expensive to do every one of these steps, but if we don't spend that money incrementally, then we end up with a building like TCP. And as my comments earlier, primary is headed in that direction if we don't get a handle on it. So, I mean, if we want to consciously build new buildings and build them as cheaply as possible and then tear them down in 20 years, then okay, then we manage them in that respect. But if we plan on keeping a building for 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever years, then we need to build it to proper specs, and we need to be willing to spend the money on an incremental basis to upgrade and maintain the building so they last that long. And we just need to find the money. I mean, we need to figure out what needs to be done to accomplish that, and then figure out how we get the money. That's what was done with the pavement management plan. It was first known that what was needed, and then they figured out a way to fund it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment from the public? Any public comment from the committee?
Just to respond to what Dave said, one of the things that I've been thinking about is, at the state level, they give you tons of money if you build a new building. They don't give you tons of money if you renovate an existing building, and that's a problem. So it's advantageous to us to build a new building, cheaper for the town to build a new building than it is to keep a building up. And I don't think that makes a lot of sense either for the town or for the state. You know, I pay taxes in both places, and I think that's something maybe the next time we talk to Senator Cronin or Ms. Merrick or whoever, that may be something we ask them to think about.
Just wrote it down. I think that's a great idea.
So I guess I do have a public comment, which is, I won't be here on June 22nd, but to Tom Balich, thank you for serving, and hopefully you do come back at some point here and be involved. Your very thoughtful approach to everything you did, and I know it takes a while to get up to speed, so you're probably leaving around the time you're about to hit on all cylinders, but again, thank you for everything you did for the town and for the committee.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I definitely enjoyed my time, learned a ton. I can't justify it right now with what's going on with work and my family, so, but I would be shocked if I'm not back in a few years, so, thank you, Chris.
We'll be all burnt out by then. There'll be a whole bunch of new people.
So we'll vote Tom for chair in 2029. Start that now.
Start the campaign, get the signs.
Just to piggyback off of that, we are a committee of 7 members. We are currently down 2 members, and we're now about to be down a 3rd member. So we are going to be at base quorum if all 4 members are at every single meeting. While we can still function with 4 members, I think the role of the Finance Committee is certainly meant to be more representative of the town than just the bare minimum of citizens that can volunteer for it. So I would strongly encourage anybody that would like to join to please put in a volunteer form. They're very easy to fill out. The process is just meeting with a few people, a quick little meeting with the town moderator, the school committee or the school department chair, and the select board, someone from the select board. Very easy meeting, very laid back, and then you get to be up here and have some conversations. But honestly, I think the discussions that can be had are far better and far more productive with additional people with far different perspectives than the bare minimum can provide. So if you've considered it in the past, I urge you to just at least put out the feeler, put out the volunteer form, if that's what it's called now. And I'm going to keep saying that pretty much every meeting until we at least have 1 or 2 more members up here. So
You get VIP seating at town meeting, too.
that's true. They give you
yeah.
they give you mints at town meeting.
You get to stare at everybody in town.
With that, our next meeting is June 22nd, and unless we hear anything different, that will be taking place. So I will send out a meeting invite for that one, and just like I said, please use the calendar function to say yes or no. And with that, I would happily entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? It is 8:53. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Good night.